Chase Thomas podcast. My nephew needs me to record. See, I already hate it. I hate it.
All right, hello, and welcome back to another episode of the Chase Thomas Podcast, where I'm still the aforementioned Chase Thomas, coming to you live from Knoxville, Tennessee, Everything School HQ. Joining me down there in Tequila, Georgia, my good friend, fellow University of North Georgia alumni, Matt Green. Matt, good evening, sir. How are you?
Good evening, sir. It is good to be back with you every week, talking ball like we do. I don't have much off the wall takes like I sometimes start with. Oh, here's one just came to me. I feel like the World Series should have started already. Friday night, I'm not gonna watch it, but Wednesday, Thursday, I've kind of been just like on TV, like, oh, what's on? Like, I would have watched the World Series if it was on one of these last two nights. Too big of a gap. Probably not gonna watch it on Friday night.
Do you know what I will say? And this is probably wrong just because we're in SEC territory, but I think there's going to be way more. My gut is this could be completely off. But it did feel like there was a lot more juice for Texas A&M Tennessee in the College World Series in June as opposed to the Yankees and Dodgers. It felt like Twitter and everybody was locked in. I don't know. My timeline is obviously going to be more skewed towards college football and stuff, but I don't know. It felt like a lot of people were really locked in. Like, I think college baseball is getting a lot of momentum, and I wonder how that's affecting Major League Baseball fans, just because there's a lot of fan bases here in the South that, I mean, obviously the SEC is on a run here in terms of winning national titles in college baseball, and I just kind of wonder. I'm like, I don't know, but it felt like a bigger deal. It's a 3-game swap. There was a lot more momentum. It kind of speaks to your layover type deal where the College World Series, man, you're just rolling through stuff, and it's just it's a gauntlet, and I just feel like it gives people. It had a lot more crossover where I think there were a lot of Georgia fans who watched the College World Series. I think there was a lot of, I guess this is my broader point. I think there were a lot of LSU fans that watched Tennessee at Texas A&M. I don't think there's going to be a lot of Braves fans that watch Yankees Dodgers. And I think that's still this general sentiment around sports. And I think I've heard some sports radio people talk about it. And I see it on Twitter where it's like, oh, it's a dream matchup for Major League Baseball. They get the Dodgers and the Yankees. And I'm like, it's a regional sport now. I just don't think people.
But that's why it's a dream matchup, because
but I don't think you can fix that.
But the regions you have are New York and LA.
They're not going to watch though. Are you more tapped in?
But I'm saying you're going to do a huge number because there's a huge number of people in New York and LA.
Right.
You know what I mean? You're more than Milwaukee and Phoenix.
But you're not getting more Brewers fans to watch this World Series. Like I think that's just it's a pipe dream. It's a regional sport now. People watch until their team's eliminated.
It is. Yeah, I'm with you. And I think also in college baseball, it's the same thing. I think you're in your Knoxville SEC bubble where you're like, hey, this got juice out here, but I don't know how much,
I would say, I'm not saying it's the same, but I am saying I know there were a lot of SEC team fan bases that were locked in on that College World Series, and they were not fans of that team.
But that's why like those ratings things are skewed, because like you just get two giant markets like New York and LA, and it's like, a bunch of people are going to be watching this World Series. And so I'm sure the ratings at the end of the day, it'll do like a way bigger number than the College World Series. But
I just think you're not going to get the crossover.
If you care about that, I don't care about ratings, but that's usually how it's measured. Interest is measured, if that's accurate.
Well, I'm just saying, I guess maybe the better way of framing it is like the fan base within the sport, where like the College World Series, the college baseball fan base, and all the teams who are traditionally good, like North Carolina, Virginia, Florida State, obviously Tennessee, the best program in college baseball. And you look around and you're like, I just think Tennessee fans would have watched, like last year with Paul Skeens. There was a lot of people all around the SEC and college baseball who watched LSU's run until the very end. And I think they're just going to continue. I don't know. It just feels like there's more crossover appeal for whatever reason in college baseball right now in the College World Series among fan bases, where I'm not saying in the regular season they're watching on ESPN Plus, they're tapping into these other games, but I do think the postseason has more juice in the college game right now than Major League Baseball.
And also Shohei Ohtani's an international superstar, so I mean they're going to be really pleased with this. But like, there's not really an NFL comparison. Like the Chiefs are kind of the evil empire, right now. Like the Patriots were for like 20 years. Like,
but that's not a regional sport.
It's the equivalent
of national sport. We all watch it.
it's the equivalent of getting the 49ers and Chiefs every year or something. Like we've gotten that Super Bowl a couple of times, but it's like, yeah, this is a great game though, and so you're gonna tune in. It's like Dodgers, Yankees. Like, yeah, I feel like with baseball, all other baseball fans, like I think all other NFL fans just respect those franchises more than any other baseball fans respect the Yankees and Dodgers, because you're like, oh yeah, the Dodgers, the team that bought all the best players in the World Series. Yeah, who would have thought?
I don't know. I think it'll be fun. I think I'll probably tune in more towards the back end. Like that's when it's the best. When it's like the back against the wall, game like elimination on the line, that sort of thing, is when you really get more tapped in. But also don't love that baseball's still going into November in these colder. But like I don't think I don't think the World Series was meant to be played in November. What we do?
Yeah, that's another thing. Like the way they stretch out the postseason. Like baseball's an everyday sport. Like keep playing it basically every day. Like you can give a day for travel or something, but try to keep it every day all the way through the postseason.
It shouldn't just be in November. That's just crazy town. Like November should not still be playing. We should not be playing baseball in November. Like that's.
I'm with you, man.
But this is a college football podcast with a Tennessee and Georgia flavor, with Matt and myself. So let's pivot here, Matt Green. College football week 9. It's already here. This season is flying by, as we say every year on this program. That it flies by, man. But here we are, and it also. It's kind of weird that we're in week 9 and we just hit the halfway point, or one game over the halfway point in terms of games, because there's 2 byes this season. So week 9 sounds a lot further down the line than we actually are, because I mean, Tennessee and Georgia both still have 5 games left to play. So we still got a healthy dose of regular season college football here. But
yeah, I remember a couple of years ago, someone being like, because you're always doing these countdowns for the season. So you're like, oh, 10 days away, 5 days away. And I remember someone, when it was 5 days away, it's like, yeah, only 95 days till the season's over. And you're like, what's your problem, man? What are you doing? Yeah, get out of here. We don't want to talk about when the season's going to be over. It's like a snapshot. All of a sudden it's gone before you know it.
I saw, that reminds me, I saw on a TikTok one the other day, where you can buy like a life calendar, or you can literally fill in like a black dot on like day 75 of your age 31 year, and all the people were like, yeah, love, like that kind of dread. Why would anyone want this? Why do you want to fill in like the day and then see, because it shows the beginning and end? Like, why do you want to fill in your dots of like,
we're getting how much
end, that's an insane thing to want to buy. But it was like one of those ultimate, like, oh, it puts, those kind of like influencer stuff.
That's the true final countdown right there.
Yeah, but like, who wants that? Who wants that on their wall and just fill in every day, like another day down? Like, that's wild creation. Well, Matt Green, Tennessee and Georgia both on a bye this weekend. But I did have a Tennessee take that I wanted to kind of pick your brain on. So I was talking somebody earlier today about this, and I think it's popping up more and more among the Tennessee fan base. A lot of people are now really here locally, and on social media and everything else in the Vol fan base, kind of wrapped up in college football playoff. Like, oh, is 10-2 not going to be enough now? Like, are we still going to be able to make the playoff at 10-2? Like, how many 10-2 SEC teams are going to be? Is it going to be 4 teams that get in, 5, whatever, 3? I have seen some models where it's like 4 Big Ten and 3 SEC, and I'll believe it when I see it.
Not to cut you off, but once it's funny how we do this every year, and people are like, "What are we gonna do if there's 8 undefeated teams?" And it's like, yeah, at some point they're gonna start losing. But go ahead.
I mean, yeah, like this weekend, LSU and Texas A&M, they're playing each other. I will say the 8-game conference schedule makes it a little bit less likely that a lot of this takes care of itself, but still, I don't think it's going to be as dramatic as people are making it out to be, in terms of just who's going to get in. Some 10-2 teams are going to be left out in the SEC. I'll believe when I see it. But it's so weird because the numbers, like you look at the analyst here, and I feel like I'm the outlier, but Tennessee is right behind Texas, Georgia, and Ohio State round out the top 4, and the TRACR projection model for open analysts, which I really like their stuff. And it's a team rating adjusted for conference and roster, that still just loves the Vols. And I think the Vols defense obviously deserves that love. I think they're
you had to go find some obscure poll that no one ever heard of that likes Tennessee. I see ya.
No, I mean, you can go to CFB stats, you can go to BCF toys, like all my analytical models of where the Tennessee defense is unequivocally elite. But I think there's a lot of folks that just really, really want to be like, the offense has figured it out. And I'm just not there. Like, I think that's not going to happen here. And I don't want to be the wet blanket, but I'm just like, I think Nico's going to have these up and down games now. I think he's going to have more like a great third quarter and then have a bad quarter and a half. And I think it's just going to be up and down the rest of the way. And that's part of just being your first year starter, a redshirt freshman, a super young kid. I think he's making progress, but the people who are really like all in on like the playoff and worrying about the playoff, I'm like, can we take it week to week? I'm just not there. I'm not the person. I think that's the playoff 12-team playoff brand. I'm starting to see that play out a little bit more this year, obviously, because so many other teams have a chance and a path to the playoff. And I just look at this team. I'm like, it doesn't matter to me in the playoff. If the offense doesn't get dramatically better, like you can't win a title with how you've been shut out in the first half the last 3 weeks. Why are we talking about the playoff? Like this is a championship caliber defense. But to me, I'm just like, we just have to clean up a lot on offense for me to even start thinking about, if we get to the playoff, then X, Y, and Z can happen. I don't know. Am I crazy to kind of dampering that a little bit where I'm like, y'all, let's take it easy. This offense still has a lot of problems and we have to figure a lot of stuff out here down the stretch. If you really want to talk yourself into like a deep CFP run, and all that. I don't know. I'm just week to week in terms of the offense. And let me see what 4 quarters look like against Kentucky at home next Saturday. I don't know. I'm just not there. I'm not thinking playoff at all.
See, I would say it's the two main things you said there. I would agree with you with one and disagree with you with the other. The first thing you said, that's exactly what I was saying after this Alabama game was the way people talk about this offense. It's like, once this offense gets going, once they open up the vertical passing game, then they're going to start to hit their stride. And it's like, if they could do that, they would be doing it, So we kind of have to accept what this team is. They have an average quarterback. They've got an average quarterback play, you should probably say to this point. But I'd rather have the average quarterback that's got the talent to potentially like shine and become something better. Like you could have just a run-of-the-mill average quarterback. Like I don't know, I'm blanking on
Utah has more
right now.
Put it in perspective. Utah has more 10+ yard passing plays this season than Tennessee. Like that's where you're at right now.
Yeah, exactly. Like I think, with how the next few weeks, Dylan Sampson might start getting some Heisman love if he still continues to be this entire offense. But yeah, that's what you are. You're a team that has one of the best defenses in college football and an average quarterback and a pretty damn good running game. And, potentially, so like that's what you are. And maybe at some point, Nico, because a lot of freshman quarterbacks, and he's a sophomore now, like near the end of that first season starting, they start to hit their stride. Like teams talk about those freshmen in NCAA tournament. Like you're sophomores by the time the tournament comes around. Like there's a good chance that Nico by the end of the season is starting to show his talent, or I might not say a good chance, but there is a chance of that happening. There's a reason he has potential. But this team, the way they're just configured, they're a contender even if he doesn't become the star quarterback that everyone wants him to be. It's part just people just get tied to their predictions. Everyone predicted he was going to be the breakout star. And so every week they're kind of looking for that prediction to eventually be correct. And it's like, no, this just might not be the year. But in terms of wanting to get in the college football playoff, like, yeah, you got a puncher's chance if you're in the playoff to win a national title. So, I mean, also like Tennessee could get held out of might not be in the SEC championship because of losses to Arkansas. Obviously an upset. Arkansas is not necessarily better than Tennessee, but then maybe they lose to Georgia, go 10-2. Like Georgia could be the number 1 team in the country. Like they could wind up getting, I don't know, a Clemson or an Iowa State in the college football playoff and end up getting to the semifinals. Like even if you don't win the national championship, that run of getting in the playoff, maybe even hosting a home playoff game, like I feel like that'll be like honestly just insane. It'll be like the best season Tennessee has had in I don't know how long, right? Like this would be way more satisfying than 2022 because of the way 2022 ended. Like if you get in the playoff and you got this damn good defense, other than maybe Cam Ward, we've talked about the quarterbacks on contenders this year. There's not necessarily that guy that just terrifies you. If you truly have the best defense in college football, I mean, that could carry you to a national championship, at least a run into the playoffs, the semifinals, quarterfinals.
And that's fair. I guess my point is, like, I'm not poo-pooing, like, getting excited about it, but, like, let's just take this week by week. I don't know. Like, I can't, because I think when you're talking about Nico, like, Nico has flashed. Like, Nico in the second half had 3 drives where Nico flashed as a Heisman-type quarterback. Like, that's in there in conference play, because we saw it against Kent State and Chattanooga. But that was the first time we actually saw it in conference play, in meaningful conference play. However, I think the consistent thing is what fans are just, the light's just going to magically come on now, where he's just going to be a consistent guy at quarterback, a consistent top 10 Hendon Hooker type. And I just don't think you're going to be happy with how things go down the stretch here if that's your expectation. Whenever Nico has these good second halves or good drives and things like that, where you just are going to have to ride the wave. To your point, where there's a lot of programs who are riding the wave with their quarterback right now. Their defense obviously gives them a shot against anybody. But I don't know. I guess my thing is just like, let's just week by week, let's just see where the offense is at, win the games you're supposed to. To your point, let's see where Nico's at in 2 months. Like, hopefully he's continually get more consistent. But I just feel like the Heisman type Nico is next year, based on what I've seen. Like, I just think that's probably more realistic next year.
I mean, based on what we've seen, I can't even put that on him next year.
Well, I'm just saying, like,
take a pretty huge jump for that.
I don't know.
We know about the potential, the pedigree, like the 5-star ranking and everything. But
I mean, part of it's the offensive line. I think there's a lot of questions there on what that looks like next year, because it's been bad this year. But I don't know. I guess my whole thing is, and what I wanted to lead here with in terms of Tennessee is like, folks, let's just week by week, let's just score in the first half for a little bit. Like, the defense is elite. The running game with Dylan Sampson's been good. You're a top 10 running team once again. That's good. You're getting better on the offensive line each week. That's good. But let's see, like, first half offensive explosion again. Let's see some of the 2022 offense for a full game before we get excited about December and wishing your season away. Because that's my main thing, is don't wish the season away. Just enjoy this defense. You might never see a defensive line this good and this deep at Tennessee ever again. Like, just enjoy week to week. Dark mode next Saturday night against Kentucky. Hopefully,
I will say
that's a good game. I don't know. That's how I am. I just want to take it week by week, and I want to see where Tennessee's offense is every single week. I know where the defense is. I know where the running game is. Yeah.
I just thought about it for the first time. Depending on what everyone looks like, I think a 10-2 team is a guaranteed playoff team. But if they lose to Georgia, this resume isn't super strong. And depending on what Alabama does the rest of the way, like, this last 5 games, like Kentucky, Mississippi State, UTEP, Vanderbilt, with obviously Georgia mixed in there, like, that should be 4 easy wins right there, plus the Georgia game. So, like, this team, I feel like there's no scenario where they don't go 10-2. Like, I know Vanderbilt's getting a bunch of love. Like, okay, like, are we really thinking Vanderbilt can beat Tennessee? Like, did Vanderbilt beat Alabama because they're better than Alabama, or did they just happen to beat Alabama? Like, just
I think
crazy
the keep away factor is just, I mean, I don't think they will, but do I think it will be a game? Maybe.
If they beat Texas or play with Texas or something this weekend, like, okay, I might take it seriously.
That's fair. All right, Matt Green. Well, what do you have on the dog bites front here this week?
Dog bites. It's a bye week. So, you know, you want to get healthy, but for one, I think Carson Beck needed this bye week. I think there's a lot of talk going in the Texas game that, like, this needed to be like Carson Beck had to, like, put the team on his back to win the game. And maybe with how that game went, like, the team being up 23-0 right at halftime, with him playing one of the worst halves of football I've ever seen him play, maybe this takes the pressure off Carson Beck a little bit. It's like, look, you don't have to go out there and win the game. Like, we know they lost Ladd McConkey and Brock Bowers from a year ago, but they also played 5 games without McConkey. They played 4 games without Bowers last year. So, you know, Marcus Rosemy-Jack Saint is gone. Like, sure, he was a good player, but I think, you know, it's a combination of Beck seeming off, and he said he admitted he was off in the Texas game. The receivers dropping passes. They just need to take a week, just let's exhale. It feels like the Florida game. It's not the midpoint, but it always kind of feels like that. The start of the home stretch, you got that bye week, and then it's like, okay, this is the home stretch of the season. So Carson Beck, Jacksonville guy, obviously is big on that Florida game, means a lot to him. So that's the biggest thing in the bye week. Carson Beck needs to get his head right. And also Georgia just needs to get healthy. Michael Williams has been hobbled like ever since the first game of the season. Been kind of on a snap count. That Texas game, dude was dominant. Like that's probably the best game he's played as a Georgia Bulldog. Got another week to stay healthy. With how good the defense looked, like Smile Munden is still been out the last couple weeks. Like maybe he's back for the Florida game. Tate Ratledge, I know that was the original date when he got his surgery. I think it was the same. Whatever it's called, the same thing Bowers got last year.
Tightrope?
Yeah, he got that same surgery. I think the Florida date was that first game back. They kind of targeted a while back. I don't know what his progress is. Same with Roderick Robinson. I think the Florida game was that target date. They wanted it like back in the preseason. So maybe Georgia can get a little healthier, but I've also noticed a disturbing trend here, sir. The highest, basically like the highest ranked draft prospect for Georgia coming in to every season has gotten hurt now like 4 years in a row. Like this is kind of crazy. We got Michael Williams, and he didn't miss a lot, but he missed a little time here. Hopefully, he doesn't miss any more games. You got Brock Bowers missed like 4 games a year ago. Jalen Carter missed like 3 or 4 games mid-season 2022. George Pickens missed almost the whole 2021 season. I don't know what's happening, sir, but whoever's like that big-time draft prospect each year, it's like Georgia ends up having to play a few games without him.
How many titles did you win during that 4-year time span, Matt Green?
There was a couple in there for sure. And Pickens basically without Pickens the entire season. Like he played a couple snaps in the playoff, but that was about it.
The world's smallest violin for the Dogs fan on this call. There you go. Matt Green, SEC tiebreakers. Did you have something here?
Yes, sir. I had a lot here because I was crunching some numbers here, sir. And I'm not gonna go in on Peter Burns. I don't know if you saw his tweet. Some crazy 9 teams going 6-2 at the end of the year. But there are currently 9 top 25 teams in the SEC, which is kind of crazy for this point in the season. But you kind of alluded to it earlier when you were talking about the 8-game conference schedule. We're gonna have a problem, sir. This is gonna be really messy, I'm afraid, this season because the divisions we need divisions. Like the divisions. Like people want to talk about how the West was stronger than the East for so long. Like, yeah, there's times where East was stronger than the West. Like, but you knew to get to that championship game, you had to play all those teams in your division and have a tiebreaker. I can think of like a 3-way tie like a couple times, like ever happening, but you're looking right now. I feel like there's a realistic shot. I would say a realistic shot at a 4-way tiebreaker, but the 5-way tiebreaker is also still in play for all these teams to finish 7-1 in conference. So you look at Georgia or Tennessee. That's going to be an elimination game for someone's second loss of the season. So just whoever you want to include there, Georgia or Tennessee. Texas, LSU, Texas A&M, and Missouri can all finish 7-1 in the conference. Like I feel like it could be kind of crazy. And the worst part is so many of these teams aren't playing each other. Like the tiebreaker, the first one they have is head to head. Then the second one is record versus all common opponents in the SEC conference opponents. Then the record versus highest placed opponents. So I guess the best team you played. So like Georgia, under this scenario for it to happen, A&M has to beat LSU this weekend, and then Texas beats A&M at the end of the year. All those teams end up with 1 loss. Like under that scenario, Georgia would have the head-to-head over Texas and Tennessee. So like, I think they would have to be in the SEC championship. Like Texas would have a head-to-head versus A&M, lost to Georgia. A&M have a head-to-head versus Missouri and LSU, but lost to Texas. LSU would have a loss to A&M. Missouri would have a loss to A&M. But the craziest part about this, if Tennessee is in this, Tennessee wouldn't have head-to-head against anyone else. Like Georgia would be the only one of these teams they've played. So it's kind of crazy. And also, if this scenario happens, Alabama would have to lose 4 games as well. So like, we'll see. If Missouri can beat Alabama this week, it'll get a little more real. Well, I'm not sure that's going to happen, but I feel like without the divisions, with so few common opponents, I feel like this thing's going to get messy. Like, I don't know how we separate LSU from A&M and Texas if they all have losses over. If A&M's got a loss to one and beat another, like, I don't really know what we're going to do in this scenario.
I agree. And I do think we're headed towards chaos down the stretch here. And we'll see how it all unfolds. But the one thing is, like, it's chaos in the most powerful league in the sport. So if you're a fan of a team who's in that chaos at the top, I'll believe it when I see it in terms of them not getting the benefit of the doubt here come playoff time and all that stuff. But yeah, I think the divisions, I don't understand why you couldn't have just put Oklahoma in the East and put Texas in the West while you still have 8-team divisions. I don't, or why you still have an 8-game conference schedule. Like, I don't know why they didn't.
You know why they didn't do that? The same reason the Big Ten tried to do the legends and the leaders.
Mm-hmm.
Because they didn't want to have Ohio State, Michigan, and Penn State in the same division. I always say they should have just like done north-south and just like, try to do it that way or something. But
how does USC fit in the north-south?
I got it. They definitely in the south at this point. Because if you're going to redo it, Alabama and Auburn going to the east would have been the only like logical thing. And they're not trying to have Alabama and Georgia and Tennessee all in the same division, and Florida at this point, like, and Auburn.
But it solves a lot of your problems.
Then you have like A&M, Arkansas, like Missouri. It's like, what, we got the Big 12 now? It's not even the SEC West.
But see, that's the whole thing, is like, you don't have to do that. Just like keep what you had and just put Oklahoma on the Tennessee side with Georgia and everybody, and put Texas on the other side.
Because I think that's what the ACC struggled with too, because they didn't want it to be like us versus them, like the Big East teams versus the original ACC teams. So they went with Atlantic and Coastal, and no one ever knew what divisions were which. We obviously knew, but no one else.
No, we've always known.
We've always known perfectly, but no one else knew. And it just
Coastal
Atlantic,
Legends,
Coastal.
Georgia Tech. We've always said the Coastal Legends, the Georgia Tech Yellow Jackets down there.
It'll be some craziness, but hopefully it's clean enough that there's not any controversy. I want to know how they're going to judge the conference championships too, because if you have this many ties, then like you might penalize that team that gets in the SEC championship and loses because you're just trying to differentiate who's better. I don't know how they're going to do it, but it'll be interesting.
Absolutely. Final thing here before we get into our Week 9 pick'em, Matt Green, you have something on the ACC with FSU and Miami, correct?
I do, sir. A game you will not find on our pick'em this week. Florida State and Miami. You probably didn't even know they were playing this week, sir. But from 1981 to 2013, these two teams met 25 times as both ranked opponents in a 34-year period. They were top 10 15 times that period, top 5 7 times. There's like a 7-year period where they both were top 10, like multiple years they're both like top 3. Like, it was insane. Last 10 seasons, there's been one game that both of these teams have been ranked. None of the times have they been in the top 10. None of the times they've been in the top 5. This game went from like being basically like the best rivalry in college football for like a decade plus to it's not even on our pick'em of 12 games that we're picking. Florida State's 1-6, Miami's 7-0. Like, it's crazy how irrelevant this game is right now.
If you had told either of us before the year that Miami and Florida State would not make our 12-team pick'em, I mean, we would have laughed in your face. It's like, there's no way. But
yeah, especially the year where you thought Miami was like a sleeper. Like,
yes,
it's guaranteed. Like, it's going to be a great game this year. So I don't.
It still might be a great game because Miami is not capable of not playing a great game because this is the ultimate test, right? Is can Miami make Florida State's offense look competent here and like really push them? Will this still somehow be 48-45 on Saturday? It will be the ultimate test for how crazy this Miami team is week over week. They're the chaos team.
And maybe this is a game that the fans show up for at Hard Rock. I don't know. Is this one that they'll take exception to, or do you think Florida State will outnumber them?
I could see Florida State actually outnumbering.
Although actually no, and a normal year they can outnumber it. They're 1-6. Florida State.
It won't feel like a home game. It's not going to be lit. I don't think it's going to be a like, oh, the Miami's really fired up to beat down Florida State to stay perfect.
I'm going to disagree with you, sir. I think the Miami fans show up for this one. I think it might get out of hand. 7 o'clock, prime time action. Miami Knights.
Is that what they're wearing?
I don't know. I'm just saying words over here. I don't know anything. I didn't really look into this specific game, to be honest, because it's not our pick'em. And I assume Miami's going to blast them because Florida State's been so bad this year.
You shouldn't assume Miami's blasting anybody because they haven't all year. They don't blast people. They play, every game's just chaos for them. So I don't know.
But in fairness, Virginia Tech has a pulse. And Cal, I would say, also has a pulse. They're
winless in the ACC, I think.
Florida State did beat Cal, but
I was going to say Cal hasn't won an ACC game yet after that hot start.
Is that right?
Yeah, Cal's offers in the ACC. Noted ACC legends, the Cal Golden Bears.
Fair enough.
All right, Matt Green. Our Week 9 pick'em, sir. Taping this on a Thursday night while I have Syracuse Pittsburgh recording, Matt Green, because I really wanted to watch this later.
Before you move on to that, Cal has lost last 3 games by 1, by 2, and by 1. You don't see that in college football very often. And by 5 to Florida State. Right in there. But go ahead, sir.
Yeah, no. But hey, Cal, they're on the rise in the ACC. Noted Atlantic school, the Cal Golden Bears, on the rise in the ACC. Matt Green, Friday night, as folks are hearing this on a Friday, we got an awesome game that I will also be tuning into. UNLV, the Friday Night Warriors. I feel like this is the second time they've been they've had a big game. They lost their last one. Who did UNLV lose to late? Why am I blanking on it? A couple weeks ago.
They lost to Syracuse.
Syracuse, that's right. Which was a really fun game. So hopefully this one's just as fun. It has all the makings of a really fun game here, Matt Green. But Boise at UNLV, 3.5 point home dogs. Is this your home dog of the week out of the gate here, Matt Green?
I don't think so, sir. I'm trusting the Ashton Genty show is going on the road this week to Las Vegas, and I think he's going to do what he does and put up 200 yards, and Boise State's probably going to score another 40 points. I think this is going to be a fun game. I think UNLV is a good team. I was shocked that they're not ranked right now. They got to be close to the top 25, but both these teams' seasons have been so similar. They lost their one, G5 or Power 4 game of the season. Although I guess UNLV's played 2. But yeah, just barely. Oregon needed a couple kick returns and punt returns to beat Boise State, but I just think Ashton Genty is going to be too much for this team. I think these teams are going to score some points, but give me Boise State. I'm going to say 42-35.
I do think this will be high scoring. But we disagree right out of the gate here, Matt Green. Home dog of the week. UNLV is not going down in primetime, back-to-back Friday nights. I think this is going to be a lot of fun. Ashton Genty is awesome. But I don't know if he's the best story here. The backup quarterback for UNLV has been electric, who was thrust in the action. He was like a 4-year starter at Campbell. Their quarterback leaves in the middle of the season, Sluka, and you're like, oh, UNLV, the season's over. Not so fast, my friend. They're totally fine. Barry Odom's still doing a great job over there at UNLV, and he's actually been better. So Williams, who took over, is 3-1 as a starter. He has a 10-2 touchdown to interception ratio. He's 4 rushing touchdowns. They've scored at least, the Rebels have, 30 points in every single game this season that Williams has started for the Rebels. So there's some really interesting matchups here. Boise, number 2 rushing offense in college football. UNLV, though, is 6th. UNLV, 27th in limiting 10-plus yard rushing plays nationally. Boise State, 60th. The other big stat I have for you, Boise, 111th in pass defense. I think this UNLV team's going to carve up this Boise team. And I think they're going to score. I think Boise's going to have to do a lot offensively to win this football game. And Ashton Genty, I think, is going to run into some problems in this game. I think he'll still be solid. But I think UNLV is the more complete team here. And I think people have just penciled in Boise as the G5 at-large favorite over the last few weeks, and a lot of that just has to do with Asher GT being a legitimate Heisman dude and averaging like over 7 yards a carry with a bunch of carries. Like, he's awesome, unequivocally. But I think UNLV is actually the more complete team here, and I think they got stunned late, but could easily be undefeated still at this point. And I think Barry Odom, better coach in this matchup than Danielson. I think they're going to win this game at home. So give me UNLV home dog of the week, Friday night, Rebs. Let's go 52 UNLV, 45 Boise State.
All right, put it on the board.
Next up here, LSU at A&M. Maybe the game of the weekend. You know it's not the game of, where A&M's a 2.5-point home favorite? The uniforms are awful. I've seen the reaction on Twitter where everyone's like, oh, it's awesome. Trash. All black. Stop doing this. Iowa State, A&M, stop doing this. Where every school having like the all black unis. No, stop it. This has got to stop. I'm so over it, and the reaction to it. You know what else stinks? The white LSU helmets.
Okay,
those are not good.
This wasn't a one-sided thing.
They're awful on both sides, and everyone's just like, awesome uniform match. I'm like, what planet am I living on? Am I the old man from The Simpsons just yelling at the cloud? Terrible uniform matchup. Terrible.
Yeah, this is you know what? You're preaching to the choir here, sir. I'm a big uniform guy, and it's unfortunate when I see so many people hyping up some of these uniforms. I'm just like, this is not gonna look good. At black versus white, like A&M, LSU, like I don't know. What are we doing? Like I was
maroon
watching,
and yellow is right there. Why do you have to go away from maroon and yellow?
Yeah, watching Pittsburgh, Syracuse earlier tonight, and it's just like two teams just wearing their colors. This is a strong uniform game. Like Syracuse like orange, white, orange. I don't know what Pittsburgh. I guess they were yellow, blue, yellow. But it's like this is who they are. This is their identity. We're rocking black versus white. I don't know. I'm with you there. I don't like it. I don't like it one bit, sir.
I'm gonna go out. It's terrible. We're going out on this podcast like awful. Like A&M's department, awful. F all around. You don't have to do this. What are you doing?
I'm with you, sir.
At least do it like Georgia and Tennessee do it differently, where Tennessee's all black.
Do it.
Well, when they did, it's like the black. You still look like Georgia when you wore the black unis. Tennessee looks like Tennessee because they have the orange tee still on. There's still a bunch of orange in it. You don't look like a different team altogether. Like you incorporate the. I can't.
Yeah, I'm with you there.
F for that.
Let's go yell at some clouds now while we're at it, sir.
Absolutely. I think LSU's figured some stuff out defensively. They were my preseason CFP pick before the year. Brian Kelly just quietly wins games. Like you're just like, I don't know about this LSU team, and then there they are, 10-2, staring right down, like they're right there. Once again,
put those 2 losses on them, sir. They don't have 2 losses just
not yet, but they still have Bama. They have this game. Like we'll see. I would still say they're probably gonna go 10-2 is my guess. But Elko 7-2 all time as a home favorite, dating back to his Duke time and previous stops. With this 2.5-point line, this just feels like the ultimate coin flip game, and you just side with the home team to me. Where I've gone back and forth on this, I think it's a really hard game to call because I think both these teams are somewhere between like 7th and 12th best in the country right now. They're somewhere in that range for me. But the home atmosphere here, I think it's going to play a pivotal role. I could see Nussmeier struggling on the road here. LSU, the thing that I come back to is LSU's 10th in the country in long scrimmage plays. A&M 56th in allowing long scrimmage plays. So there's some issues on the back end for A&M, and they've given up some big plays this year. But I don't know. LSU should have lost at South Carolina, who's I would say worse than A&M to this point. They've gotten away with some stuff this year, and they could easily have a couple more losses. They could easily also still be undefeated with how that USC
0
game.
seconds against Ole Miss.
Yeah, I think this is where they get got. I think A&M, just with Elko, they're just solid. And I think we're heading towards an all-time great collision course with A&M and Texas at the end of the season here, Matt Green. So I think A&M's legit. I think LSU is quasi-legit in terms of I think they're still a CFP team, but I don't think they can win the national title. So give me A&M as another, I guess they're not a home dog. They feel like a dog, but A&M 34, LSU 28.
Yeah, so I went back and forth with this game. Like you kind of alluded to, with Harold Perkins, this defense was allowing 24.5 points per game. Without Harold Perkins, they're allowing 15.3 points per game. I would not say they're better without Harold Perkins, but the data would suggest otherwise. But ultimately, so look at this game. LSU's
Did you hear about Elliott's theory on the Cover 3 a few weeks ago? I think it was about the Harold Perkins factor.
Well, there's always the Patrick Ewing effect, right? That's the old.
Well,
theory.
It wasn't the Ewing theory. It was just that like he's hard because he doesn't have a natural position. I think is how Bud explained it. Where it's like hard to figure out where to play this guy. Where it's just like those unicorn types. It's like what are you supposed to do? It's like I think he compared him to the Clemson guy from a couple years ago. Do you remember Simmons?
Isaiah Simmons.
Yeah, where you're like, I don't know actually what. But
I think that might be an indictment on LSU's defensive staff because Isaiah Simmons just constantly made plays at Clemson, just
but he didn't
wherever
work in the NFL
he was
immediately.
lined up.
But yeah, they couldn't figure it out, and it just didn't really. And he was a high pick, and I don't know. It's just
he hasn't been good in the NFL, right? But he was a star at Clemson. Like he made plays all over the field.
But I think it's just a broader point. I think it was Bud on the Cover 3 a few weeks ago. I thought it was interesting.
No, I mean, who knows? It could be. I would think you'd figure out how to. He seemed to make a lot of plays as a freshman. Just like put it back to just doing that. But who's the real Connor Wegman, sir? It looked really bad versus Notre Dame. Looked great against Missouri. Looked pretty average against Mississippi State. So Mississippi State, maybe they're looking ahead. I don't know. Coming off a big win. I don't know, but home team has won 7 straight in this series. So that goes a long way. And like you said, this feels like a pick'em game with Texas A&M. My thing is LSU has just kind of figured out how to win games. Like they haven't been able to run the ball really much this year. And then against Arkansas, like they just dominate the time possession, run for like 150 yards. I think Durham ran for over 100 in that game. Like you're seeing Nussmeier, like what is he now? Top 5, top 8 or so in the Heisman betting odds. Like he's up there. Like he's kind of like, I feel like he's like just willing this team to victory. It feels like every week. I think I'm just buying LSU, to be honest. Like it's going to be tough to go on the road, but this team's gone into hostile environments so far this season. I think I'm going to take LSU to go into A&M. It's going to be another great A&M LSU game like it seems to be every time these teams get together. But I'm going to say LSU. I think, did you say 34-31?
34-28.
34-28. Okay, yeah. 34-31. I'm taking LSU to win this game on the road.
Okay. Man, we've disagreed again out of the gate here. Mizzou at Alabama, 16.5-point home favorites here for the Crimson Tide against a team that hasn't like lost a bunch, but it feels like they're in the Auburn zone. They should have lost to Auburn last week. Mizzou just keeps getting away with it. They should have lost to Vandy.
Yeah,
it's just really weird. The vibes are just so bad, and they were a preseason like CFP team, and it just there is no juice with this Mizzou team. 16.5-point dogs at Alabama. It's just like when you're trying to fight for a CFP appearance, that should be disqualifying. Like Mizzou's out. We're tossing them out after seeing this Alabama team. You're 16.5-point dogs against this Alabama team?
A struggling Alabama team. Yeah, at that. I don't know. I feel like because Alabama's played the way they have, it's like 16.5 just feels like such a big spread. It feels like at some point this offense has to get right? Like we've seen them score points, right? I saw them play Georgia, right? But
that's what this is. You're just like, they played Georgia well. They have to be good.
No, I kind of say that jokingly, but like in terms of we second guess Milroe all the time on last year, and ultimately they got the SEC championship. Like he did enough, finished top 5. I don't think he should have finished top 5 in the Heisman, but they got things done. This offense found ways to win games. Like now they're just turning the ball over, like just doing stupid stuff. Like Milroe's got 6 interceptions the last 4 games. Like, I don't know. They've played 4 straight 1-score games. Like all 4 of them were losable. Like they went 2-2 over those. Like, I don't know. It feels like this team like desperately like needs to get to the bye week, honestly, and just kind of like regroup. And Missouri is on the same like level. Like it's just hard, especially with Brady Cook likely to not play in this game, and the running back Noel, I think, is also doubtful in this game. I think I'm basing it more off of I don't really believe Alabama's offense is gonna like blow them out. So I don't necessarily feel like this game's gonna be close, but maybe Missouri, gets a strip sack, just forces a couple of turnovers and like kind of makes it not a blowout. So I'm going to take, what do I have here? I'm going to take Alabama to win and not cover. So I'm going to take Alabama 27 to 16.
Interesting.
Are we worried about Alabama? Like, is there a culture issue at Alabama? Like, it just feels weird. Like they're talking about, like players talking about, oh, we're going back to the touching the wall when we mess up. It's like, why'd you stop doing that? Like it's weird. And then DeBoer making a comment about like, oh, maybe we need to start tucking in our shirts and carrying ourselves a certain way. It's like, that just feels like a rattled coaching like move to me. Like ultimate, because people have kind of criticized, oh, he's so laid back. That's never going to work. That like Nick Saban wasn't like that. If he's a guy he's won everywhere, I would think this guy would be like, look, I know what I'm doing. Like, this is how I coach. Like, we'll be fine. Like, it's year one, lost some close games. Like, we're fine. But the fact that he's like, he did change his shirt. Yeah, right? Like getting like bullied, it felt like on social media. We're in a different shirt the next week. Like, now it's like, oh, we're gonna like start doing things how we used to do. Like, I don't like, it just feels really early to be like, oh, maybe we shouldn't have changed that up. They had a good thing going. Like, I don't know. And then AJ McCarron now talking about like making the everyone cares about TikTok and all this. Like maybe AJ McCarron's just another old man like we are. And it doesn't really matter that the kids are on TikTok, but I don't know. It just feels like there's a lot going on with Alabama and like kind of the off the field, just the vibes right now.
I don't know, man. This is a team that beat Georgia like a month ago and did it in impressive fashion. You saw what Texas just did against Georgia.
We've seen it for 4 straight weeks since then. Just look real bad.
Yeah, I mean, I get all of that, but I still think Kalen DeBoer deserves the benefit of the doubt. Like, until I see a Kalen DeBoer team go like 8-4, 7-5 in the regular season, like it's just never happened. Like his all-time record is just still preposterous, and they still have Ryan Williams. I still think the highs of highs with Jalen Milroe are still pretty high. The lows are pretty frustrating if you're a Bama fan. He's obviously still recruiting at an elite level. I don't know. I'm not the sky is falling. I said when he got hired, he'd probably get one, and then I think Kalen DeBoer like goes to the NFL or something. Like I think he gets a title, and then he goes to the NFL. Like I don't think Kalen DeBoer is like a 10-year guy at Bama, but I think he's like a 4 to 5 year guy.
Yeah, Alabama fans have definitely answered like the hypothetical questions we had before the season, though. Like, are they going to freak out if they lose 2 games?
Mm-hmm.
Like, no, they understand. It's not going to be Saban. It's year one. They're like, yeah. I was in the presence of an Alabama fan for the Tennessee game. Like, they're Kalen DeBoer might be on the hot seat starting 2025. I don't even know.
That's silly. Like that shouldn't happen. But
the fan base is not going to put up with it for long. They're not known for their rational takes.
I think this is a get right game. I think they beat down Mizzou. I think this is like the Mizzou fraudulent tour. It finally ends. Like you got away with Auburn the previous week. This is where like Bama just needs to like let out some frustration after the past month, to your point, where my gut is I think they're actually going to play one of their best games they've played in a while. Because I think this is a must win. Obviously, you're out of the CFP altogether if you don't win this game if you're Bama. Mizzou, I think they are who they are the whole year. Like Mizzou has never shown anything close to what Bama's shown against Georgia. I think Mizzou has just been rough all year long, and there's just something wrong with that offense. But I don't know. It's just Mizzou is 94th, Matt Green, in scoring offense in SEC play. They're 100th in long scrimmage plays and conference play. Like this offense has been horrific once SEC play began. I don't think they're going to be able to keep up with Alabama in this game. Like my gut is, I think Brady Cook, who left and came back from the hospital, and that was like the big thing coming out of last week. There's no juice. That Schrader, maybe he was the heart and soul of that team last year.
I think so.
Losing him has been huge because Burden's back. A lot of these guys are back, and he's the missing guy where you're like, man, he may have been a quiet leader and someone that they really, really missed offensively. But yeah, I don't know. I think this Mizzou offense is really, really broken. More so even than Tennessee's been. So give me Bama at home here. Give me Bama 38, Mizzou 17.
All right.
Next up here, Texas at Vandy, top 25 matchup, which I don't know why they still didn't just go game day wise to Vanderbilt for this one. Vandy 18.5-point home dogs. What say you, sir?
Vanderbilt owns Texas, sir. 8-3-1 all time against the Texas Longhorns. Haven't played since 1928, however. But that's not really relevant. Are you done with Quinn Ewers? Are you selling your Quinn Ewers stock?
I don't think so, because like we talked about at the top of the show, it's just, I don't know. I think all these quarterbacks, I just don't feel good about. Like, I think Arch didn't really pop when he was thrust back in. Like, I don't think you're that much better at this point with Arch. I don't know. I think he's fine, but I think the best of Quinn Ewers is still pretty good. The worst of Quinn Ewers, when he's not protected well, you saw it can get pretty ugly. So I don't know. It depends on how he's getting protected week over week. Really, for me with Quinn Ewers.
Yeah, I'm with you. Was it Mel Kiper or someone a couple days ago saying they need to go to Arch Manning, or I don't know. Someone was. I've heard it. More people talking about it. I feel like when will people learn, sir? Just getting dominated by the Georgia Bulldogs doesn't mean you can't play. Like, the Junkyard Dogs are just different. No, but I think any quarterback, like,
I mean, think about Jalen Milroe. Jalen Milroe has made an entire career off playing the Georgia Bulldogs.
Hey, to be fair, it's just this one time. The SEC championship, he didn't like ball out on Georgia, but
he's undefeated though.
He won. Oh, for sure, he's got that. But to the main point, like, when you're getting pressured like that, I don't think there's a quarterback in the world that can look good when he just can't throw, especially the guy who's not a dual threat anyway. So no, I'm not selling my Quinn Ewers stock either. I think he's still, top 10 quarterback in college football. I will say, I don't necessarily think like Vanderbilt's going to make this a game. I just think like the 18.5 just feels a little high to me. Like the Texas thing is like, obviously you can still say they haven't played anyone like other than Georgia. So you can still kind of question their previous 6 games and how good they necessarily are. Like, we don't know that they're truly one of the elite teams. Vanderbilt is a borderline top 25 team. Like, the record says they're top 25. I don't think odds makers are having them anywhere close to the top 25 by any means. I don't know that this Texas, like, that's one thing that was, I think, the most surprising to me in the Georgia game was there just weren't really many deep shots. Like, you saw Mississippi State against Georgia the week before, like, so many deep shots, just putting the DBs in one-on-one situations and either pass interfere or make a play on the ball. Like, you really didn't see Texas do that to Georgia at all. So I kind of wonder about Texas's ability as just a vertical offense, but I think they win this easily, but at 18.5, I think I'm going to take another underdog to keep it close. So I'm going to say Texas 38-20. So I will take Vanderbilt to cover that 18.5 point spread.
Interesting. I think that too. I think Vandy's going to cover this game. I just think we've seen the SEC, the home atmosphere, and there's just so much more. Like, these schools are just so close this year. Like, it just doesn't feel like there's an elite, separate kind of team. Texas felt like the closest, and then they got beat at home by Georgia. My gut is 18.5 is just too high, because I think Vanderbilt, part of the reason I like Vanderbilt here is they're 11th nationally in time of possession. They are going to be able to keep Texas's offense off the field a lot, especially home here. So I think they're going to be able to keep it close just by their style, with Diego Pavia and company just running the football so much and trying to win with time of possession over anything else. So I think they're my favorite to lock to cover. I just don't think they really have a shot of winning this game. I don't think Texas is losing back-to-back games to Vandy and Georgia here. So give me and Vanderbilt also 86th in quarterback rating allowed against them. So opposing quarterbacks have fared pretty well against this Vanderbilt defense. So give me Texas 35. Let's go Texas 35, Vandy 24.
Ooh, that's a little. This could be a fourth quarter game.
I think it's possible. Pavia's just, you can't count this dude out, man. Pavia is going to keep them in more games than not. Oklahoma at Ole Miss. Oh, don't want to watch this one. Ole Miss, 20-point home favorites. What say you? Big spreads here in the SEC this weekend.
Yeah, a lot of big spreads this week. This is an interesting one, right? Because we saw Ole Miss came out a little sleepy at home last time we saw them against Kentucky and got beat. Oklahoma has looked so bad the last few weeks offensively. Like, I think this team, I don't really know where the ceiling is, or where the floor is, I should say. By the way, these teams have met one time, all time, 1999 Independence Bowl. Ole Miss won that one with Josh Heupel playing quarterback. Bounced back the next year, won a national championship. But if the transitive property has told us anything, sir, Ole Miss beat South Carolina by 24. South Carolina beat Oklahoma by 26. That means Ole Miss is winning this one by 50. So give me the Ole Miss Rebels big. I guess Jackson Arnold is now the starter again. I don't know what they're doing. I wouldn't be surprised if they got shut out. What was the score I picked here? I'm going to take Ole Miss. I'm going to say 38-17.
38-17. So you don't have them covering.
No, that's 21.
Oh, 21. Sorry. 19. I was thinking 19.
But I wouldn't be surprised if they score less.
This Oklahoma team is just so hard to read. So they fire Seth Luttrell this week. Who they hired this offseason. Kevin Johns, who was almost, I think, the Iowa OC. He was with Elko as the OC at Duke. Doesn't go to Iowa. Tim Lester goes to Iowa. And then he was the analyst, and now he's going to be the co-OC with Joe John Finley. Like, it's just very weird. They're going back to Jackson Arnold this week, too. Also weird, but they're just down all the receivers. So, like, I just can't get a read on what Oklahoma is going to look like offensively. Like, they've been putrid, but is there a chance it's a little bit like, you know who else has a putrid offense and one of college football's worst offenses and went into Oxford and beat the Rebs a month ago? The Kentucky Wildcats. They've actually been worse offensively than Oklahoma this season. So I don't know. Like, it's just really hard for me to figure this out. I'm like, would Ole Miss really do this twice? No, I don't think so. But 20 is high based on what I've seen from this Ole Miss team. I think they just haven't earned that kind of respect to me yet to just be like, yeah, Ole Miss is going to take care of business and put down Oklahoma, one of the worst offenses in SEC.
I think this is more of the disrespect that Oklahoma has earned.
I guess. But so OU and Ole Miss are number 2 and number 3 nationally in rush defense. So neither defenses are going to allow the opposing offense to run the football. I think this is close. I think it's a lock that Oklahoma covers here. Ole Miss still second nationally in long scrimmage plays. OU but is top 20 in allowing those, so they're really good there. The problem is, and where this game will be lost, and where Jackson Arnold should not be playing in this game, is Oklahoma's 133rd in sack rate out of 134 teams. Matt Green, Walter Nolan and company are going to eat this offensive line up. So I think this is a recipe for disaster there. So they're going to have to do a lot of short stuff, time possession, that kind of thing to keep him upright. I don't like that matchup. I don't think Ole Miss gets upset back-to-back games at home in terms of like just bad SEC offenses. So Ole Miss wins, but I think Oklahoma covers. So give me Ole Miss 38, Oklahoma 24.
All right.
Next up here, Illinois at Oregon, 21.5. The way that's been talked about, it's like, oh, the CBS 330, they finally get a good one. It's a 21.5 point line. The line I got. Poor Gary Danielson and Brad Nessler this season. Those games have been, oof.
Man, I don't know. I mean, I think we could easily find it out with a Google search, but I don't know what Disney, ABC, ESPN paid for SEC rights, but it was well worth it, sir. Like, with how the schedule is this year now, it's like you can just stay locked in on ABC from noon to the 7:30 game. Like, it's just triple headers every weekend. You don't have to flash around to see the primetime game on CBS that week.
Yeah.
It's pretty perfect. So, yeah, this CBS game, this is probably the best one they've gotten all year. And I think Illinois has a way of, kind of playing with teams. It kind of feels like Texas, Georgia, in the sense of the only common opponent was the worst team in the conference, and Purdue the last couple weeks lost to Illinois 50-49, and then they lost 35-zip to Oregon. So if you can take anything from that, Oregon should beat Purdue handedly. Outside of Boise State and Ohio State, where they played close, like 30-point games, close games in the 30s, Oregon has allowed 14 or less in every other game. I think this Oregon defense is one of the better defenses in college football this year. And we've seen Illinois is just kind of, they have their moments, but this is your classic Big Ten team that 3 yards in a cloud of dust. Luke Altmaier, he's played, I think, better than most expected this year, but I'm gonna say Illinois keeps it close because I think they just have a knack of doing that. But Brett Bielema is just one of the better coaches in this conference. But I don't think this is a particularly close game. Kind of like these other ones I've picked. Like, I don't think they're really going to threaten them. I'm going to say Oregon wins this one 28-10.
Yeah, I wanted to ask you this. So I couldn't find like the exact stat here, and I was curious if anyone came to mind for you. But as a 5'1", 5'11", 5'10", because I think Dylan Gabriel's closer to 5'10" than even 5'11". He's in the Kyler Murray zone to me in terms of what I'm looking at when I watch him play. Has a 5'10", 5'11" guy ever won the national championship? Do you recall anyone ever doing that?
Yeah, I don't know if you go way back, like, because I guess Bryce Young never won a national championship. Nope. Bryce Young and Kyler Murray got to be the best in recent years, right?
But never won a title. Doug Flutie was someone I thought, but he didn't win one, obviously.
You can win the Heisman under 6 feet. You can't win the national championship.
That's kind of my theory.
Is Heupel 6 feet?
Heupel 6 feet, yeah. Yeah,
maybe
Heupel.
If he's got heels on.
No, Heupel. Hold on. What are we talking about here? Heupel is absolutely over 6 feet.
I just
hold on, let's see. What is Heupel's height? Yeah, he's 6'2".
He didn't look that big. Seeing him like when he was playing, he seems like one of the kind of smaller, average build looking quarterbacks. Like when he was in college.
No, he was a specimen, man. He was a physical specimen.
Because it seems like a lot of quarterbacks, like, they don't look big, and then you're like, oh yeah, that guy's 230.
You know what he looked like to me?
Like Lenore Sellers or something.
No, he looked like a winner. That dude looked like a guy who was going to go win his team a national title. That's what he did 24 years ago.
That's what winners look like.
Yeah. But yeah, it was just something I thought about today. I was like, man, who hasn't? I was just thinking about it because I was previewing this game. I'm like, no one comes to mind. And I don't think Dylan Gabriel would be the first one if they ended up winning it all. I feel like he would be the first one in a long, long time, if ever, to be like 5'10", 5'11", and win a national title. And to your point, like Heisman, sure. But in terms of national title, that's not happened here. But Illinois, 24th in sacks. I'm curious how Oregon handles being number one now. They're hunted. I think Illinois just keeps playing above their weight. And I think until they prove that they're not going to rise to the challenge, because they just keep winning games, so people are picking against them, I'm going to pick Illinois to cover. But I do think Oregon's going to take care of business here at home. So give me Oregon, similar to you. Let's go Oregon 27, Illinois 20.
Oh, you think you got this being a game?
I think this is going to be a game. Illinois just drags people
at
to
Illinois. This. I think this might be an upset watch at Illinois. Like maybe crowd going nuts or something. But I think at home, I don't worry too much about it.
Penn State at Wisconsin. This one I might worry a little bit more about, Matt Green. What say you? Wisconsin 6.5-point home dogs.
A little trap game potential, maybe. We got Ohio State, Penn State, a little big noon action next week. If you like that sort of thing, we'll get to see Gus Johnson and Joel.
Wait, is that at noon next week? Not a night game?
Yeah, I'm pretty sure they announced that was at noon because people were upset about that. Yeah, I'm with you. Is it at Penn State?
Yes.
At Penn State, yeah. So things are lining up for the Nittany Lions this year.
That's not lining up. They need to be a night game. I'd be furious if I'm Penn State fan right now. You need that to be a night game.
Yeah. I'm with you. Penn State's 11-9 all time versus Wisconsin. They've won 7 of the last 8, and James Franklin has won the last 3, or is 3-0, I should say, because they don't play every year. But all these games are usually pretty close. So Wisconsin feels like they're kind of like, they're improving a little bit. I think I'm buying in a little bit to the trap game. That like it might be kind of close, but ultimately, like I don't think Penn State loses this game. So I think it could be kind of close. I'm going to say Penn State wins this one 27-20 and covers on the road and sets up that matchup with Ohio State next week.
Have you looked at the rest of that schedule for Penn State?
No, I don't have it in front of me.
If they win this game and they lose Ohio State, they still are in really good position for 11-1. I don't think that's happening here, Matt Green. I have an upset for this weekend.
Wow.
I think Wisconsin's just going to get them. I think Wisconsin was giving Alabama a game before Tyler Van Dyke got hurt. I think they're playing
for like 5 minutes.
Yeah, I think that would have been a game. Now that we've seen a lot of Alabama to this point,
yeah.
I think that would have been a game. I think Wisconsin's figuring some stuff out. This line's really low. 6.5 tells me they know. There's some Wisconsin love on the betting markets right now here. Wisconsin, we know, tough place to play traditionally. Wisconsin has the third best scoring defense nationally in conference play since they started Big Ten play. This just feels like a classic 10-2 drop game for Penn State and James Franklin. Like you said, let down look ahead spot with Ohio State next weekend. You can't overlook the Badgers this weekend. I think the Badgers are improving. Franklin's 14-14 all time coming off a bye, and he's 9-12 coming off a bye at Penn State. Matt Green. I think this is a bad spot. The Penn State has won the last 5 games against Wisconsin. There's something about this. I think this is where they get got. Until I see 12-0, 11-1 Penn State in the regular season, and I'm looking at the rest of the schedule, I don't see any other obvious home or away losses for Penn State the rest of the way. This is, I think they get got here, and it loses some luster next week for Ohio State, Penn State. But I think they're both going to go in with 1 loss, is my gut. So I think Wisconsin has the upset of the year. Luke Fickell's first big win as the Badgers coach. So give me an upset special, because Drew Aller, another guy I'm not sure about. And I could see him having a really rough game here against this Wisconsin defense on the road. So I'm going to go Wisconsin 30, Penn State 27.
That's bold, sir. November 27th, 2021. That was the last time that Penn State lost a regular season game to someone not named Ohio State or Michigan. So for the most part, they've been taking care of business against everybody else.
We shall see. Nebraska at Ohio State. The Buckeyes, 25.5 point home favorites, and they're locked this weekend. This is a 99% chance that Ohio State wins this football game, Matt Green.
Yeah, there's so many big spreads this week. I feel like you just know we're gonna get some sort of madness. Where is it gonna happen?
I mean, we already got it. Kennesaw State beat Liberty this week.
That's fair. That's what were they, 0-6 coming into?
Yeah, they were the second worst team in college football this year in FBS.
Shout out to the Owls. Did you spend some time at Kennesaw at all?
My freshman year, I went to Kennesaw. Yeah,
that's what I was thinking. All right, shout out to the Owls, former Owls. Then you became a Nighthawk, then a Vol. You're all over the place.
Well, hold on.
That's I saw some stat.
I was ahead of the game in the transfer portal.
That Dylan Gabriel was the best quarterback of all time to ever play for a Big Ten school that used to be a Pac-12 school, that also played for an SEC school that used to be a Big 12 school, and he played for a Big 12 school that used to be an American Athletic Conference school. All over the place. But no, we know where your allegiances lie, sir. I'm not going to question that. But Nebraska's been pretty solid this year. Not solid, but respectable. So I was a little surprised at the 25.5. So I wouldn't be surprised. Ohio State could do this by making it, 28-0. I could easily see them covering this spread. But because it's 25.5, I don't know if I can give them all that. So give me another one where I'm taking the underdog to not be respectable, but not get blown out. So I'm going to take Ohio State to win this one 31-14.
There you go. I think this is going to be a blowout. I think this is just the thing that happened in Nebraska is the defense is legit, but they're 1-9 all time against Ohio State. I think this, not addressing the offensive coordinator thing, the Satterfield part of it, we saw it last year. It was a disaster with Sims and company, but he's been bad everywhere he's gone. Like South Carolina's offense has gotten better with post Marcus Satterfield. It's just not good. He's like the Ted Roof of offensive coordinators, where Satterfield, it never works, and so many teams do the Tobias Funke. He didn't work for them, but it might work for us. Like Marcus Satterfield is never going to be an elite offensive coordinator in the sport. Like it's just not going to happen. So I think this Nebraska offense stinks, and I think it's going to continue to stink. And I think this Ohio State team is going to pour it on this team because the offense is not going to be able to do anything against this Ohio State front. So give me Ohio State. Give me Ohio State 42, Nebraska 13.
42-13. Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't be surprised at all if they just if they take care of business easily.
Game day's worst game of the weekend. Washington going to Indiana, where the Indiana Hoosiers will not have their starting quarterback with game day in town. Taven Jackson, former Vol, transfer back to Indiana. He will be the starting quarterback. Curtis Rourke out for this one. The undefeated Hoosiers with Kurt Zignetti host Will Rogers and the Washington Huskies. What say you, Matt Green?
Yeah, you said it. It was game day, so I felt obligated to put this game on our list. But it's I don't know how much interest I have. Yeah, like you said, with Curtis Rourke out, like this Washington team gave up a 40 spot at Iowa a week ago, or was that 2 weeks ago? I feel like Indiana with their backup quarterback is probably as good as Iowa. Like this offense has just been scoring points every single week. So I don't know. I'm not really impressed with Washington to this point. And I mean, we'll see what they can do with the backup quarterback, but I'm still going to trust Indiana and Coach Sig until they prove otherwise. So give me Indiana to win this one. I'm going to say 24-17.
Coach Sig. Is that what we're calling him?
Yeah, that's what I didn't come up with it. That's what the people are calling him.
Interesting. He's legitimately pretty awesome. He's 27-4, I think I calculated as an FBS head coach.
Google him, baby. Just wins games.
The man backs it up though. Like the Google him and everything else, I just win. Like it's just I respect it, man. The Indiana is an almost impossible job. And the man is like borderline going to go undefeated this year. I mean, you have Ohio State like 11-1. Like you're in the playoff conversation. Like you have a real path. Like year one, he's making this look easy. I use one of the worst Power 5, now Power 4 jobs in football. They only care about basketball up there, and even they've been pretty solid at baseball. You have Kyle Schwarber and company. Like they're usually pretty decent in the Big Ten.
Kyle Schwarber, huh? Nice.
Yeah, he's the picker. Drop. He's the guest picker this weekend.
I didn't know he was an Indiana guy.
Yeah. So I don't know. I think this continues to roll on, but I have to adamantly oppose them because I need Indiana to go down. I don't need this whole Tennessee or Indiana at 10-2 conversation in December. So I have to go all Huskies all the time here, Matt Green. I have to root against those Indiana Hoosiers, but I think they escape with the win. But my heart will be with the Belichicks. And,
still salty about that. Was like 2021 Belk Bowl or
yeah.
What was it? Was it the Belk Bowl?
It was the one in Charlotte, I think.
Music City Bowl?
Was it Music City? It was either the one in Charlotte or Nashville. I can't remember which one.
What was your score?
I want to pick Washington so bad, but I don't think they're going to win this game. Give me Indiana 24, Washington 21.
All right, put it on the board.
Notre Dame at Navy, the midshipmen. 13.5 point favorites for this game that will be played at MetLife, I think, Matt Green.
Is that right? MetLife?
I think so.
Yeah, Notre Dame 80-13-1 all time against the midshipmen. Won 43 straight from 1964 to 2006. Since then, Navy's 4-12 versus Notre Dame. Like that's not good, but talk about 43 straight losses. Now you've won 4 of the last 16. Like that's essentially a hot streak right there. Blake Horvath, this Navy offense has been pretty dynamic. He's got 20 total touchdowns, the leading rusher as well. I mean, this is a good story and everything. Army and Navy having great seasons, but Notre Dame's gonna take them to the woodshed, sir. They might be respectful, because it's Navy, support our troops and all. They won't run the score up, but they're covering this thing. I think easily. So they're winning by 30 points a game since that loss to Northern Illinois early in the year. I think Notre Dame's figured some things out offensively. Give me the Irish 34-14 over Navy. And I'm not picking against the United States or anything, taking Ireland over USA. I'm just taking Notre Dame to win this game.
America's team, another one I'm rooting actively for to win this game outright, the Navy midshipmen to win this one. And we got to be rooting against them. Got to get Notre Dame out of here. I need to, that's one of the cool things about your team being in the CFP mix and being on the board. Like, I have people to root for all weekend, or root against all weekend now. Like, Indiana, enemy number 1, got to get them out of here. Notre Dame, got to get them out of here. Mizzou, got to get them out of here. LSU, I'm the biggest South Carolina fan the rest of the season, stuff like that, where you're just like, got to get them out of here. Weirdly, Florida in some ways, but
so do you think the second loss is a preconceived notion as a Tennessee fan? Because I would think you're still in the mindset of like, we control our own destiny to win the SEC, no?
I don't know, man. I'll believe it when I see it with this offense. Let me see 4 good quarters. Like, I'll do that. I'll say that they can do that if I see 4 good elite quarters of conference play football offensively.
That's fair.
But yeah, Notre Dame 110 to the last 11. Blake Horvath is awesome. I think he has like 621 yards rushing. He's averaging almost 8 yards a carry. I think he's only behind Ginty in that stat. So he's been awesome. It's awesome that Army and Navy are elite this year. It came at the cost for my guy, Coach Calhoun, and the Air Force Falcons. Been one of the worst teams in FBS. So for Army and Navy to rise, Air Force had to fall. Don't love that for the Falcons.
Is that how it works? They can't all be good at the same time?
Apparently not. But Navy's actually second nationally in turnover margin, Matt Green. And they score big points every game. So I think this is going to be high scoring. I think Notre Dame's offense is going to have to score against this Navy team to win. But I do think they ultimately get the dub. But I think this is going to be close until the end. I think Navy absolutely covers this 13.5 point line. So give me Notre Dame 38, Navy 34.
Ooh.
And then our final 2 here pretty quickly, Matt Green. BYU at UCF. UCF 2.5 point home favorites. I don't really get this one.
No, I did not understand that either. I had to double check that when I saw that UCF was favored. Maybe Vegas knows something we don't know. But until proven otherwise, this UCF team has lost 4 straight coming into this one. There's been some close losses, but BYU just feels like the most complete team. There's been some chaos in the Big 12 for sure this year, but I don't know. I'm just not a believer in UCF right now. I could see them keeping this close, but I'm gonna keep until proven otherwise. I'm gonna just keep believing in the BYU Cougars, sir. So give me BYU 27-24, going on the road, getting it done.
Great story. Another one I got to root against, because I can't have some 11-1 BYU and 12-0 Iowa State or something. So unfortunately, I have to root against the Cougs as well here over the next couple of weeks. Even as awesome as Jake Retzlaff and company have been, it's just weird. UCF, Gus Malzahn, they've really struggled. We talked about they could be the favorites to win the Big 12 and kind of surprise some folks. They're 107th in scoring defense in conference play, so this UCF defense has been really rough. But they're still an elite rushing team with Harvey. BYU is 79th in rushing yards per carry allowed. I think this is actually a bad matchup, and they barely got by Oklahoma State last week. Took a final 1-minute drive for them to break that. I think going on the road to UCF is where they go down here. I think UCF is actually a good. This is where they get back a little bit. I don't think the sky is falling in Orlando. So give me UCF to bounce back at home and give BYU their first loss. Let's go UCF 38, BYU 35.
All right.
Final one, a game that not even the fans of Auburn and Kentucky will be watching. Kentucky 2.5 point home favorites over the Tigers. Good Lord. Oh.
Auburn has won 18 of 19 in this series, sir, dating back to 1967. So these two teams don't match up often, but when they do, Auburn wins. They're 2-0 since Stoops got the job at Kentucky. So that tells you how seldomly they play.
Stoops is 2-0 against Auburn?
No, Auburn is 2-0 since Stoops got hired. Auburn has lost. I just had to copy and paste this from our pick'em last week and just add to it. Auburn has now lost 7 straight games versus Power 4 competition, and now they're 5-12 in their last 17 games overall. What were they up? 17-6 going into the fourth quarter versus Missouri a week ago. Found a way to lose that game. I don't know. I just feel like at some point they have to win, right? And Kentucky, this team is not anything impressive. So is this a night game or is this a noon? This might be like the 7:45 SEC network game that no one watches. They kind of hide on prime time. I'm not 100% sure. But this game, I don't know. I think I'm going to take Auburn to finally end this streak and get in the win column. I feel like if they lose this game, it's only year 2. This feels like a very important game. That like if Hugh Freeze loses this one, there's got to be some serious conversations had at some point. Like he's recruiting well. Like maybe you just know you're going to give him through to year 3 or 4, but I don't know. You got to start to ask some questions if they don't look good against anybody.
Yeah, my gut is look. It's so stupid, but I'm gonna keep picking Auburn because they are in position to beat good teams. Like Auburn should have a lot more wins this season. Like they're in these games and they just can't close. Like Auburn plays well. You've seen the good of Auburn. They're talented. They're recruiting extremely well. They're just not finishing, and Kentucky weirdly has been way worse at home, I think, in conference play than on the road over the last couple seasons. So it's actually been a detriment. Did I see like they've lost 10 of their last 12 home games in SEC play? I want to say something like that. So I think they're really falling apart. I think Kentucky's legitimately bad. This is going to be an all-time bad quarterback matchup between Vandergriff and Peyton Thorne. But I think Auburn at least has life on offense. This Kentucky team, I don't know. I predicted before the year. I think I said on our previous show, I said Kentucky would be like a 3-9, 4-8 team. And this would be the end of the Stoops era at Kentucky was my big prediction. And it's trending that way, man. You got Tennessee on the road next week. Like the losses are still coming. I think Louisville is pretty good and they should play them pretty well. I don't know. Kentucky's in real trouble. So give me Auburn 24, Kentucky 19.
So 24-19, what's that spread? So
well, it's an upset altogether.
Kentucky's favorite. That's right.
Yeah.
You got Tennessee at Tennessee. You got at Texas and Louisville still on the schedule. So this would be what if they won this one? This would be the 4th win.
Yeah.
Yeah. If they win this one and then beat Murray State, the 5th win, they got to win one of Tennessee, Texas, Louisville. I don't know. They could beat Louisville, but I'm not necessarily predicting it. But yeah, I doubt a bowl game is in this team's future.
And then it's like, what are you doing with the Stoops era? I don't know. Matt Green, that's all I've got, sir. Anything else you want to add as we wrap up here on this Thursday night?
That's all I got, sir. We didn't get into this Thursday night game. I just got a feeling there's gonna be a pick 6 or something going on in this game. Just a hunch. That's all I'm gonna say.
Okay. Well, I'm gonna watch it later, so I'll let you know if I see one. Matt Green, always a pleasure, and I'll talk to you in a couple days.
Yes, sir.
Nicely done, nephew. The Chase Thomas Podcast. Hell yeah.